Hello and good evening. Thank you all so much for joining us for the Upskill Masterclass. We are so excited to have you in our midst. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Vincent Mack, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Agile Consulting Group.
My name is Thaddeus Hanna. I am the president and co-founder of the Agile Consulting Group. Welcome. We're so happy you're here with us tonight.
We're so excited to share with you all this evening on this particular subject matter. It's the Upskill Masterclass. Some of you may be wondering, what is upskill? So upskill means to teach a particular skill to enhance your overall performance, your overall production. So it may be something that you don't have. It may be something that you know already, but may need a little bit more added to it, if you will. However, myself and Thaddeus, we came together and we said, you know what? We need to address a huge elephant in corporate America. And that elephant is there are many individuals that are working jobs and they're not being or feel fulfilled because they can't advance to the next level. Opportunities seem so scarce. They get interviews, but they're not getting phone calls back. Or they get a phone call back, but once they receive an offer, the offer is nickels and dimes. So we decided to put together a masterclass on this evening to help you to overcome the obstacles of not earning exactly what you believe that you are worth. We're going to teach you tonight how you can look good on paper. We're going to help you discover exactly who you are as a professional, and we're going to teach you how to calculate your worth. So we're so excited that you all joined us this evening. So as we are getting started, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. So once again, welcome to tonight's masterclass with myself, Vincent, and Thaddeus, our president. So on the screen, you'll see this young man, and that young man is me, young Vince. I remember growing up, as you can look in the background, got the cord phone going on, got the throwback jersey on. If you look behind me, you can see that my window is covered with a sheet that was designed for beds, not windows. So I think that that is very telling that I grew up in a life that wasn't ideal for myself. I grew up in poverty. And what poverty did to me, poverty made me angry. But one thing that I'm grateful that poverty did for me, poverty gave me drive. I was so upset that we were poor. I was so frustrated. It was overwhelming. It wasn't the life that I wanted for myself. I wasn't a scholar student. I wasn't, top of class or anything like that. But one thing that I did was I was resourceful. I knew how to use my resources. My father, he is a felon, and he was in prison during my teenage years, so I didn't necessarily have him to rely on. I knew that I did not want to go down that path. I knew that there had to be something more for me. There had to be something greater. And I was so determined and so committed to fulfill what I felt I was called to do. Now, mind you, earlier I mentioned I was not an excellent student in high school. I did not graduate top of my class. I actually graduated in the lower half of the class. I almost didn't even graduate on time, but I managed to do it. So immediately after high school, I started working at a financial institution. I was 18 or I think maybe 19 years old when I started off as just, a part-time teller. And I was intimidated. I was intimidated by the new role. I was intimidated by the challenge. I was intimidated by the task. I didn't feel that I could do it. I still remember to this day, going into that interview with my powder blue dress shirt on, my gray Bill Cosby sweater vest, and I remember my armpits being drenched in sweat because I was just that nervous. I knew that I wanted the opportunity just that bad, but I knew at the time, Vince, you don't really have the skill sets that are required to allow you to have a successful career in banking. But shame on me for thinking that. What I ended up doing, I ended up setting small goals for myself. And I'm going to share with you, Thaddeus is going to share with you tonight on how both of us advance in our careers at a rapid rate. The things that we've been able to accomplish in a short period of time has been game changing. We are executives in our field. We are professionals in our field. We are coaches in our field. We help other people reap the same type of success that both myself and Thaddeus have been able to see. So, in the beautiful thing is, and we strongly encourage education. I was able to accomplish this without a college degree. Thaddeus was able to accomplish this without a college degree. Thaddeus, I'm sure, is proud to announce and proud to share with you all this evening that he has 2 degrees now under his belt. And I'm proud to announce that in May of 2021, I will be a college graduate. But that was one thing that I had on my list of accomplishments that I wanted to complete. And I have faith and know that you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to. Sometimes you need to set those smaller goals, get those practical steps, and that way you're able to get in motion. Now, enough about us. Let us dive into tonight's presentation as we share with you more. So we want to talk to you all about how to look good on paper. Collect your skills now for later usage. What does that mean? That means that you are collecting skills now that you may not necessarily feel that you need, but you're storing up those skill sets to be able to add it to your paper resume so that when it's time for you to apply for that job, to get considered for that interview, you already have the necessary skill sets needed so that you can be successful in that role in which you're applying for. Imagine how much you can stand out in amongst the competition by already having skill sets. You don't need to be trained for it. Or if you do require training because you may be introduced to new systems, the amount of training that is necessary for you to be effective in that role is very minimal. So that means that you aren't a high risk employee that they're bringing on to the team.
I couldn't agree with you more, Vince. You shared some very good information. And when we think about collecting the skills now so that you can build those skills, I almost look at it as how the squirrels will do, right? They'll gather those nuts and they'll store them up for later. That's the same thing that you have to do as it relates to your corporate career. Take advantage of those opportunities where maybe you're not interested, right? You may think that this isn't something that's really necessarily for you, but the skills that you can gain from the right now in the position that you're in, if you leverage those opportunities and really focus at, okay, I want to get to be at this next level in my career, you're able to share those success stories of the skills that you've gained. You're able to share those success stories to help your coworkers, help even your managers see, wow, I was able to take something that wasn't necessarily maybe my job or maybe not as what I thought deemed to be very important, but you were able to take those skill sets and really help cultivate them to really make sure that you've really sharpened yourself in a nutshell. And it's very important when you think about doing these types of things that you don't really have like a narrow mind, but you're keeping an open scope of everything that can be done within those skill sets.
Very well said, Thaddeus. And embrace new challenges and say yes. Things may seem hard. The task may seem hard, right? I understand that. However, embracing those new challenges now so that later on in life, when you may need it, you may be presented with the career opportunity. They may ask, are you familiar with a particular system or a particular process, or do you have experience in this particular field of study? You can answer honestly and say, yes, I do. By embracing new challenges, what that does for you is it helps you to continue to stick out amongst the competition. By embracing new challenges, what that says about you is that you are fearless, that you are a go-getter, that you are a self-starter, and that you are serious about advancing to the next level of your professional career. So you need to show and display that commitment and stop opting out because it seems too hard or it seems as though someone else is more qualified than you are. Yes, there's always going to be someone else out there that may seem as though they are better at your job, that they can do it a lot faster than you can and more efficiently, and that's okay. But guess what? You have to make your mark in the corporate world so that they know that you are here and you're here to stay. So stop opting out of the challenge and embrace that challenge and answer with a yes.
I like that, Vince. And when you think about embracing the challenges, oftentimes it's really easy to say no. I'm not interested in that. That's, as I said before, not in my job description. But like Vince said, it definitely will set you apart, whether it's even in the job that you currently have right now, or maybe it's that job that you're looking to get to. Leaders know leaders. Communication, you want your name to be mentioned amongst other senior leaders within the company that you work for, because oftentimes you never know who knows who, right? So when you take those opportunities and you end it with a yes, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm more than happy to take on this challenge. It's making you a better leader. It's making you a better person. It's making you a better employee. It shows that you want to sharpen the skill sets that you have to set yourself apart from the others. I can think of so many times that I've went to different employees and they tell me, no, I'm not, I have no desire to do that. Or no, I don't want to work on the weekends. I have to focus on X, Y, and Z. But there's that one employee that you can always count on. And when it comes time for those different promotions, when it comes time to think about, let's give this extra task to Thaddeus because I know that he's able to get the job done. Or maybe I'll think they know that I would think outside the box to be able to leverage those skill sets that I have and make sure that I'm able to get the job done. So it's very important that you always think with an open mind and look to end that with a yes.
Very well said, Thaddeus. Compensation versus exposure. This is a huge topic. How many times have you yourself said, I don't get paid to do this? Or how many times have you heard it? It's a common thing that is said amongst employees across all industries. I don't get paid to do this. But let's dive a little deeper into the thought process and the concept around exposure. When we think exposure, we think of, oh, well, that means I'm getting exposure in the presence of individuals that would give me an opportunity. But I want to challenge that thought process around exposure and offer a different perspective. When you think of exposure as a way it's exposing me to a new skill set that I may be in need of or that I may want to add to my resume. Now, bearing that in mind of exposure, yes, I may not be in the room of executives at that moment or in the space of hiring managers. However, I am in the space where I can develop new skill sets that I did not have before so that I can add that to my resume and I can speak to it with confidence at the time I'm granted an interview. So what you're doing is, yes, you're collecting up those skill sets. You're storing it up. You're getting ready to use these things for later. However, when we start thinking in terms of resumes, some resumes are very scarce, and they're scarce because you're not embracing new learning opportunities. You don't know what to speak to or what to actually put down on paper because you keep opting out of learning experiences. Look at learning experiences as resume boosters. Yes, you may not get paid for it now, but embrace that opportunity to gain that exposure, to understand that, yes, I'm not compensated for it now, but my ultimate goal is to gain these skill sets, perfect it, and then I'll be able to look for additional opportunities or be considered for promotion in my current place of employment.
Vince, you hit it right on the head when you talk about compensation versus exposure. There has been so many opportunities where I've been chosen to do something that, again, wasn't in my job description, or then honestly, maybe I just didn't want to do it. But by actually doing these different tasks that I've been asked to do, the different projects that I have assisted with, it's allowed me to work with other senior leaders within the corporation that I work with. It's allowed me to get my name out there when they'll say, I've heard about Thaddeus, tell me more. I see that he's doing this project. Don't always focus on the compensation now, because if you keep on doing the things that you're doing, later down the road, the compensation will be much bigger than what you could have been offered at the time of you accepting the different projects. Many times when you turn down the opportunity to assist in other areas, you're cutting off the compensation that you could have received. So when we talk about looking good on paper, think about the skill sets that you can list on your resume based off of the different tasks that you have done, the different projects that you lead. You may not even realize that you're a project manager when you were originally doing a job that was specifically just geared towards customer service. But if you help with these other projects, the other opportunities that are given to you, that is definitely going to strengthen the skill set on your resume.
Love it. Perfect your written and verbal story. We all have a story. And a lot of times it's our story that allows us to connect with different individuals and different employers. Stop being afraid to share and tell your story, because your story made you exactly the professional that you are today. Now, when I say tell your story, share your professional journey. Share the different milestones. Share the different accomplishments that you've gained just even down your time in your profession. Stop being afraid to brag on yourself, because ultimately on your resume, that is the time to really brag on yourself and tell your story of how you got from here to there. Now, the beautiful part about a resume is it starts at an earlier time period in your life. You want employers to be able to see your career progression and growth. Now, back in 2004, you may have worked at a smaller retailer, but then in 2010, you got a management position. And then 2015, did you remain in that position? What changed? What made you decide that you want to try and reach for something greater? Now, one of the deciding factors for me to leave a company in the past, it was one of the most difficult decisions I ever had to make. I was comfortable. I was well respected in this organization. However, I had realized that I reached the glass ceiling. I had gone as far as I was going to go in that organization. I was in a leadership role. Yes, I had conversations with my boss to see what else was out there for me to do. However, because I am committed to my personal growth and my journey, I sat down with my boss and I expressed to my boss that I desired to continue to progress within my career as I had done to get to the point at which I was at that time. Now, as difficult as that decision was, it was a decision that had to be made. And it's a decision that today I'm so grateful that I made that choice, because I had to become committed to my story, to my journey. I knew exactly where I came from, and I knew exactly where I wanted to go and where I was headed. And the point that I was at, that was not enough for me. And I knew also too that at that stage in my career, there were more skill sets that was out there for me to collect and put under my cap so that I would be able to add these things to my resume. So a common trend that you'll notice with me, I always set goals. I've always given myself a time period on when I would stay in a role, how long I would give myself to master that role, and when I would start setting my affections on advancing from that level.
That's really good, Vince. And when we think about perfecting your written story, your verbal story, you have one time to make that first impression. And oftentimes, your first impression is going to be based off of your resume, because that's generally what's going to get you that step in the door. Share everything that you can, from the successes that you've had to the highlights that you've had. My story is not Vince's story, and Vince's story is not my story. So it's so very important to make sure that you are telling your story and that you are really sharing what's important about you. How are you set apart from that other individual? Understanding that your story shares so many highs of your career. You want to ensure that when you're sharing this information verbally, once you've actually had the opportunity to meet with that particular employer, but also from a written standpoint, because when you're sharing this information, it allows them to understand what type of individual you are. It allows them to understand a little bit more about you. So you want to take that time, kind of like Vince just said, brag on yourself. Make sure you are sharing that information, and don't feel like, oh, I don't want to say this because they may think that I'm arrogant, or they may think that I'm an individual that uh, maybe shares too much information. This is your time to really highlight who you are. This is your time to really make sure they understand why they need you, and why, well, I'll say this, why they need me and why they don't need Vince. It's your time to share your story.
Absolutely. Excellent point. And also bear in mind that you want to be confident, but you don't want to be overly confident.
Very true.
And when I share overly confident, that means that you don't show up to the interview and just act as though, okay, I already got this in the bag. That is a huge turnoff for employers. So be confident, but not overly confident, because you don't want to overly confident your way out of an opportunity. Time equity. What does that mean? That means the time that you invest into your current career, and also too the time that you even invest with your employer. Nobody likes a job hopper. If you are inconsistent with how your length of time that you remain at a job, you spend 4 months here, 7 months there, 3 months there, employers are going to view you as a flight risk. No one wants to take on that liability, because think about it. It costs employers a lot of money to onboard a brand new employee, to get them set up with benefits and make sure that their compensation package is one that is desirable for the candidate in which that's being considered for that role. So you want to make sure that your time invested in your places of employment tell a solid story about you, and it doesn't paint the picture as though you're a flight risk. You don't want to be dismissed from an interview before you're even offered a opportunity to interview, because your time equity isn't there. And then as we also talk further about time equity, invest time in perfecting your craft. Take on master classes such as this to learn new skill sets and techniques and strategies. Take on different courses and attend different conferences and seminars and webinars that's going to equip you and help you gain additional skill sets. And ask your employers to make the investment if they deem necessary. You'd be surprised at how much your employers will be willing to invest in good employees to help you get the skill sets that you need so that you can be a thriving individual, so that you can bring that energy and that skill set to the place that you currently work for.
I couldn't agree more with you, Vince. Time is so important. And not only is it really important, it's important that you understand when you are having challenging times at your current employer. That's not the opportunity for you to decide this job is not for me. This is an opportunity for you to learn maybe what not to do. This is an opportunity for you to learn. Maybe you need to document the things that are happening, but definitely don't assume or get so frustrated when you're in a difficult situation that you decide to, as Vince said, become a flight risk and you start looking for other jobs. Because oftentimes you can leave and you can find another job, but the same problem that you may have had at that employer, you may have it at the next employer that you go to. So definitely ensure that you are processing what's happening. Make sure you're processing and make sure you're not the issue, because oftentimes we like to place blames on maybe the manager or maybe the company, when you need to really invest time in this role so that when it is time for you to progress and move to a different role, you're able to have some takeaways to say, yes, I learned from that. When you think about time, at minimum, you want to make sure that you're staying in a role for at least a year. And a year is honestly very, very small, but anything less than a year, that's when you start looking like a flight risk. You're there for 6 months and you're at another job again. You're there for 6 months and you're at another job again. At minimum, stay in that role for at least a year. But it's nice if you can at least be there for 1 to 3 years, because honestly, in order for you to really master a position, it's going to take you at least 1 year. After that first year, then is when I definitely believe, from working in leadership, that you can start saying, okay, I've mastered this. Now I want to take on additional roles, additional duties within the job. So definitely try to stay within that position, a minimum of a year, but look at it big picture. What can you learn within that 3-year time frame?
Excellent. Who are you? It's a pretty valid question. And guess what? Employers want to know, who are you? You have to understand the importance of character. And I think it ties so perfectly in the last subject that we just talked about, time equity. You want to show that you are not a flight risk, that you are a committed employee, and that if they invest in you, you will invest back into the organization in which you work for. You also want to be a person of integrity. You want to be that person that they know without a shadow of a doubt that they can trust, that they can depend on, and that you are an individual that is committed to the work that you do, and that you're not just there for the paycheck. Now, let's be honest. We all work for compensation. I believe that if our employer stopped paying us today, many of us, I think probably all of us, would stop showing up. But although compensation, yes, is a selling point, you also want to make sure that you are committed to the mission. You're committed to the work. You're committed to what it is that you set out to accomplish. All of these things really help you stand out even amongst other candidates. It's more than just skill sets. Yes, we talked on the first half of this webinar about the importance of getting the skill sets, about taking on the new tasks and the new challenges so that you can add these things to your resume. But your resume does not sell you alone. Who the person is behind the resume is what seals it with the bow. I mentioned to you guys earlier about when I first got my start in my professional career. And I started off as a part-time teller. And I walked into that interview and I was nervous and my armpits were sweating. And I wanted the job so badly, but I knew I did not necessarily have the skill sets. I was so grateful to have even been considered for an interview. And when I left my interview that day, I shared with them, I said, I'm so honored that I was even considered to have an interview with you all. Thank you so much. And guess what? 1 hour later, they called me back and offered me the job. And as I worked the job and I showed dedication and commitment, I was a good steward over the opportunity that I wanted. When I had the opportunity to talk to my hiring manager, he said, Vincent, he said, do you know why we hired you? And I said, no, I don't, Joe. Tell me why. And Joe said to me, he said, your interview wasn't the greatest. He said, and there were some other candidates that interviewed better than you did. He said, but he said they didn't have the passion that you had. They weren't as genuine as you were. He said, yes, you didn't have the skill sets. He said, but I picked up on your willingness to want to learn. He said, I can't teach individuals how to have your personality. He said, but I can teach you the skill sets that are necessary for you to be successful. He said, so continue bringing you to work and I'll teach you the skill sets. And he said, and Vince, you'll be successful. So sometimes your character, a lot of times your character will seal the deal with the big red bow, because your resume may not be what may be the final deciding factor, but your character, understanding what good character is, that will help you seal the deal.
Vince, that was a great story. And I definitely agree with you 100% when you talk about character, understanding who you are. I oftentimes will say, it doesn't matter what an individual will say to your face. To me, it matters what they say when you walk out of the room. Your character, your reputation, your branding is so important. Understanding the importance of who you represent, yourself, how you carry yourself, the way you interact with other individuals. Are you a hothead? Are you an individual that will pop off, if I can say it like that, at the drop of a dime? Understand the importance of how you deliver certain messages. Understand the importance of how, even for an interview, I love how Vince shared that during his interview, the passion that he had, they were able to see that the individual that they wanted to hire. And most employers don't call you back within an hour, but they wanted to make sure that they didn't let Vince get away. So when you think about that, and for those of you that are looking to get to that next level, passion is so important. Definitely ensuring that you are giving the best you, that you are delivering the best you that you can during your interview. And even once you make it to that next step and receive the job. I have had so many individuals that we've hired, and then once they receive the job, you're like, you're not the same person that I interviewed. You want to be genuine from start to finish. You want to ensure that your brand and the individual that you are definitely is portrayed during your career, and that you are doing the best that you can and delivering the best you that you can.
Bringing your skill sets to life is one of the best ways, because it's not just words, but it's words backed by action. When you're able to bring your skill sets to life, that means you are who you say that you are on paper. Mm-hmm. There's consistency there. You're not showing up as someone totally different, as Thaddeus mentioned, but you're showing up and you're bringing your A game every day. You're bringing your A game because you said that this is who you are. You said that you are a self-starter. You said that you have the ability to negotiate, the ability to be analytical or an innovator. I want to see that innovation. I want to see those skill sets. I want to see that character that you said that you can bring to this job every day. So you need to bring those skill sets that you mentioned to life. If you are stating the metrics that you're able to produce for that said position, then guess what? I want to see you not only meet that, but exceed that. Because if that's who you said that you are on paper, there needs to be some consistency there. Otherwise, your employers will leave feeling confused. Because I will wonder, well, you said that you were able to produce 3 million in new loan growth over a 1-year period, but you show up and you only have $50,000 in your pipeline. There's inconsistencies there. So you must bring those skill sets to life each and every day. And always set a goal to outbeat your last best. So if your last best was 3 million, shoot a personal goal of 5 million so that you can add those metrics to your resume, because you want to show that you're constantly evolving and growing as a professional. You don't want to show that you're stagnant or that you're not growing. If you did 10 million in sales at ABC company, guess what? If you're going to XYZ company, you need to set a goal to do 20 million in sales. So you should always try to outbeat your last best.
I agree, Vince. And it's so important when you bring your skill sets to life that you're always honest with yourself. Because I have seen so many individuals that will say, I'm an expert in Microsoft Excel. Hear me when I tell you, I've had individuals come and say that they are experts in these particular fields. And then when you ask them during the interview, can you please show me how you put formulas into this spreadsheet? Can you please show me how to do this exercise? And they have no idea how to do it. I've seen so many individuals say, I'll say that I'm an expert in this area because I can learn it. Be honest with yourself. Bring your skill sets to life that you have. And again, when we think about the other topics that we've covered, if you take advantage of the other opportunities that you have had, that's when maybe skill sets that you may not have had, you'll learn from those situations and be able to do even better. So it's so important to always be honest. It's so important to always share. Hey, I'm not familiar with that, but I can definitely learn it. I'm a fast learner. I'm a go-getter. Sharing those things that you are able to do, and then they'll be able to give you an opportunity to advance.
Excellent. Understand how you add value. When you understand how you add value, that increases your stock in the company. Because when you understand what exactly it is that you do, you'll now start feeling as though you're a contributor to the bottom line, which you are. If you're a part of any organization, you should always make sure that you add value. But many people don't know how they add value because they may not receive the recognition, the praise, or the compensation that they feel that they deserve. And a lot of times when these things are lacking, you may feel as though you aren't valued. So it may make you question, how exactly do you add value? Once again, this is a prime opportunity for you to rely on your skill sets and your skill sets that you're bringing to life, right? So as you're bringing these skill sets to life, for me, for instance, if I can speak for myself, I know that I'm an innovator. I know that I bring structure to whatever project it is that I am afforded the opportunity to be a part of. I know that I have really great time management and that the project will be delivered on time, if not early. I know these things about myself. That is how I add my value. And then I also have the ability to negotiate. I have the ability to bring a number of skill sets to the table. So I know exactly how it is that I add my value. And once you understand how you add your value, then when it's time to start talking price tag, you know exactly how to kickstart that conversation.
Vince, you hit it right on the head when we talk about adding value, knowing who you are and really understanding what you bring to the table. Nobody can do the same things that you can do. Maybe they can do it to a certain degree, but you add value in your own lane. So when you think about that, really examine, because oftentimes you'll go for an interview and they'll tell me, why should I hire you versus the other individual that I just interviewed? Vince shared some very good information of the things that he brings to the table. Brainstorm for yourself and think about, what is it that I bring to the table? What sets me apart from Bob? What sets me apart from Mary? So that you can honestly say and articulate very well what you bring to the table and what is going to set you apart. Because oftentimes, you know in the back of your mind, but you're under pressure when you're in an interview. And when you're under pressure, sometimes you may not articulate as well. So think about the things that set you apart to understand the value that you add. Because I assure you, you add a lot of value, but it's making sure that you can articulate that to make sure that you look good on paper and you're able to move to that next level within your career.
Experience versus education.
This one's good, Vince.
This is a huge controversial topic. We hear about it all the time. But I have the education, but I have the experience. Which one trumps the other? Now, this is just my personal opinion. I believe both of them are equally as important. I think ultimately, when it boils down to it, I believe industry plays a huge part in this as well. Now, someone who is in the medical field, I probably want to make sure that you have a degree under your belt if you're going to be operating on me or providing me with any diagnosis.
I agree, Vince.
Because that lets me know that you're well studied. However, there are industries where you can really gain the practical skill sets that are needed for you to be successful in that role, and actually having that real life experience sometimes trumps the book knowledge. But I believe both are equally as important. As I mentioned earlier, I was able to successfully progress in my career without a college degree. And I was able to do so in a very swift period of time. Of course, for me, my education is and was and always will be important because I consider myself a lifelong learner. But on my journey, without having the degree, I was able to leverage my experience and learn how to master speaking to that in an eloquent way that employers will understand that, yes, he may not have the degree, but he's able to fulfill this job duty and add the value that we need. So many times you'll see, even in the job descriptions, we're looking for a 4-year degree or equivalent experience, or X amount of years in experience. And that is where that time equity piece comes in at as well, is you want to make sure that that time equity is there as well, because that is what contributes to the experience that you have that you'll bring to the employer as well.
I agree. Experience is very important, but education is also just as important. So one thing that I want to leave with you when we talk about experience versus education, making sure that in every role that you have, and I know we've talked about this and some of this seems like a repeat, right? But when you think about experience, nobody can take your experience from you. Once you have had the opportunity to learn and you're able to process that and apply it to your daily life, apply that to your career, it allows you to be a step ahead, to ensure that you're doing the right thing within your career. When you think about education, no one can take that from you either. So definitely take advantage of both of those. If you have the opportunity, and I highly encourage you to go to school, highly encourage you to pursue a higher education, but understanding that the experience is just as important, and definitely highlight that information and share that information with the experience that you have.
And research and apply. So what that means is you're taking time to research and see what's out there. See what the current employers or individuals that are in a similar field as you, see what the going rate is for. Take time to research to see who the competitors are in your industry. And as they have positions that open, take time and apply for the job. A conversation never hurts. And having the ability to have a conversation with employers, see what's out there, seeing what they're offering, that definitely can tee it up for you to go back to your manager and have a conversation with them and saying, hey, XYZ company is paying X amount. Let's talk salary negotiation. But make sure that there's an offer on the table before you go into that, because this is a risk with salary negotiations. With salary negotiations, you always have to be willing to walk. Because guess what? The answer may be no or not right now. And you have to be okay with that. But if you're serious about moving on and growing and getting paid what you believe that you are worth, take time to do the research. See what's out there. Take time to actually apply for different roles. See if you can land an interview. If you're not landing interviews and that is the industry in which you're working in, that is a clear indicator that you may need to make changes to your resume.
Vince, researching and applying is so important. Not only doing the research of the role, but you definitely need to research the company that you're applying for. Understand the culture of the company. Understand the history of the company. So many times you will apply for a job and have no idea what you're getting yourself into. So before you apply, make sure you are doing your homework and that you're setting yourself apart again, because oftentimes individuals may ask you, tell me a little bit more. What do you know about ABC company? Make sure you're doing your due diligence and making sure you're educated to set yourself apart.
Well said. So Thaddeus, I want us to open up the floor for questions. I do see that we have a few. So we had really great dialogue. We talked about calculating your worth, discovering who you are. We talked about actually taking the time to discover how to look good on paper. We gave you all these practical steps. Now, if you enjoyed what you heard this evening, we have a special offer that we would like to extend to you, and we'll send this information out via email in case you are interested. But we put together a phenomenal webinar, Secrets to Earning Your Worth. And we have a resume writer, a professional resume writer that is giving you the exact skills, the exact knowledge that you need to make sure that you're standing out on paper, walking you through what you need to add to each section, things that you need to consider taking out. We have another individual that is talking to you about interviewing concepts. This is an HR generalist that works for a very prestigious organization within our great city of Milwaukee that has been in the industry for over 10 years. And she is telling you exactly the do's and the don'ts when you're presented with the opportunity to interview, because we're just that confident. And a common topic is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a wonderful platform for everyone to use to connect with other professionals. This individual is a LinkedIn consultant, and she has a degree in communications, and she specializes in LinkedIn, so much so that she wrote a book about it. And she's been in the boardrooms of LinkedIn. and she's had the opportunity to teach and help other individuals really leverage LinkedIn to get to the next level of their career. So she's sharing on this webinar. And then we also have a talent acquisition specialist with over 25 years of experience in the industry telling you exactly what you need to do to negotiate or renegotiate your salary with new employers and even with your current employers. She's telling you specifically what sites to go to as it relates to understanding how to properly research what is actually out there in terms of salary. She's telling you exactly how to prepare for the conversation that you want to have with your boss to let them know it's time for a raise. And then you have yours truly, myself, who is a serial entrepreneur and has been able to apply all of these steps my own self and reap success in true results. Thaddeus, who's been able to reap success in real results by way of these practical steps that are being shared during this webinar. And I'm talking to you about personal branding. And for those of you who don't know, I'm known as Vince Lamar. That is a brand that I have been able to successfully establish for myself for 3 years and counting. And I believe that it's only going to continue to go up from there. But it's important to establish a consistent and a solid and a sound brand for yourself. Now, this webinar is just a small investment of $75, where it is 60 minutes of jam-packed information. We encourage you to get your notebooks and get your pens and get ready to take all the notes, because this webinar is jam-packed with information. And Thaddeus, you can go ahead and share with them as well, just on the many benefits of enrolling and registering for this webinar.
I couldn't agree with you more, Vince. The individuals that we have are at the top within their career, experts that I definitely believe in. One of the individuals that is talking about resumes, how much money has he returned from working with his clients?
Over $120,000.
Over $120,000. Excellent top resume writer. I mean, there's so many different skills that you will receive just from being a part of it, from the salary piece of it, really understanding how to negotiate a salary. The individual that is leading this part of the webinar, this is what she does for a living. And she is literally sharing these secrets with you to help you get to that next level, to help you really understand what you are worth. So many times we just don't know, right? And you go for a job interview and you take the first thing that's offered to you. The information that is shared is honestly priceless. For the amount that you are paying for this webinar, it's not even justifiable, understanding the amount that you will take away from learning from these individuals that are sharing. So definitely I echo everything that Vincent has shared. You will not leave this webinar frustrated. I think you'll be ready to fly with the Eagles for sure.
And we did a study with our facilitators for the webinar as well. And on average, collectively, with all of the skill sets that they've shared, each of them have been able to collectively help individuals receive at least a $15,000 annual increase collectively with the skill sets that are being taught. So when you think about a $75 investment and compare it to a $15,000 annual salary increase, I encourage you to take time to do the math and see
Absolutely.
that there is a lot of value in the Secrets to Earning Your Worth webinar. So we encourage you guys to get enrolled into it. And it is a webinar that is offered to you on demand. So if you want to watch it even this evening, we can get you that link to the webinar so that you'll be able to take on these skill sets and use these practical skills and start excelling in your career. Now, we'll go ahead and we'll send out that email to you all that have joined us on this evening. And we thank you all so much for joining us for the Upskill Masterclass. Once again, my name is Vincent Mack, also known as Vince Lamar, as I mentioned earlier. And I'm your CEO and co-founder of Agile Consulting Group. And it's been my esteemed pleasure to serve you all on this evening.
My name is Thaddeus Hanna. I am your president and co-founder of the Agile Consulting Group. And it's been a pleasure spending time with you. We thank you so much for joining us.
And as we like to end each and every last one of our webinars with our motto here at Agile Consulting Group: live agile, work agile, succeed agile. Until next time, our friends, take care.